Welcome on into GoldSheet TV. Heading into week 11 of the NFL season. Dan Alexander, my co-host at Newbie Talks on Twitter, here with me to talk about some topics around the league, to think about heading into NFL week 11, also discussing a little recap of our week 10 plays, and then Thursday Night Football as always. So, Newbie, no hesitation. Let's get right into it. We were on fire on the show with our picks last week. You nailed it on the head with the Houston +7 as they win outright. Pittsburgh -3 gets home against Green Bay. Detroit, we said lay the 3, but that was a moving market. So if you got the 3, you got the push there. But hopefully you did see some 2.5s with that W there. San Francisco -3, one of the easiest bets of the season. But when it came down to that prop parlay we had, Newbie, Mike Evans gets it done with flying colors. But Aaron Jones becomes RB2. What happened over there in Pittsburgh, Newbie?
Yeah, that's just brutal. Away from having the absolute peacock strut of sweeping every play that we gave out last week, comes down to Aaron Jones just not being the guy on Sunday. 2 straight weeks where he was the guy, flying over his posted total. And then the handicap was rock solid. The whole thought was, let's fade the Pittsburgh Steelers run defense. And they gave up 116 yards on the ground, but 70 of them go to A.J. Dillon on 9 carries. Aaron Jones gets the workload, 13 carries. He can only muster up 35 yards. The total that we had was 51.5. So, of course, the 1 week that A.J. Dillon decides to go off after he's burnt prop bettors and burnt fantasy football players is the week when I say, I think Aaron Jones is going to be the guy to bet. So that one stung a little bit, especially when I saw, some big time A.J. Dillon scampers. I was like, where was that all season, man? Because I probably would have taken the better number on A.J. Dillon if I had any faith in him, but we're not here to complain. It happens. We end up losing the parlay. If you bet him straight, EP had it nailed. I mean, the posted total on Mike Evans wasn't even a little bit close. I think he ends up with over 140 yards receiving. Great handicap on that one. But really, people come here for the side plays. It was the first time we did our little player prop parlay, and we're going to continue it. Just we're not going to be one and done to the well there. But Houston outright. I thought +7 was going to be the back door swinging wide open in the wind. Man, CJ Stroud, it's not he's coming. No, he's here. And I talked about this team a lot throughout the year with the Houston Texans with our preview shows and just how excited I was for Houston Texans fans, our producer Robert notwithstanding, when they brought in DeMeco Ryans. He's not a kind of guy who's going to sit back on his hands and say, let's get some good draft picks. No, he's there to win now. He has the quarterback that can win now. They have a receiver in Tank Dell who's looking legitimate as any. And, I just think there's a lot to be excited about. Did I expect them to get the outright win? I'm not going to lie. I didn't sprinkle the money line on that one. But it just goes to show that, when you think that you have a dog getting points that you like, maybe you always sprinkle a little bit on the money line because that was a barking dog through and through. And EP, I got to, go back to this San Francisco game. They were laying 3 on the road. We had some consternation in the comment section about how I can't pick Jacksonville Jaguars games. I don't know what I'm talking about. If I talk Jags, it's an auto fade. Rocking chair winner. The motivation handicap was spot on. The matchup handicap was spot on. Us trying to pick our spots, fading with the Jaguars, finally worked out for us. So it was nice kicking our feet up, man. And I knew we had a show like that coming up because you know what I mean? It's not like we've been going 0-3 and really not seeing the board. It's been 1-1 weeks with some props winning or, 2-1 weeks where you're just pushing with some juice. So having the sweep on the board, man, it felt good. It justifies the work that you and I put in and week out. And now this week's in the rear view. Let's start looking forward and cash some tickets for next week. Hopefully people rode with us and have a little more money in their pocket to do so.
Yes, sir. Great week on the show. Glad to get some of these picks in. And it's just nice. It feels good because something that I've mentioned before, and I know sometimes people of us complaining, but it was just like that 1 week I was complaining. But overall, I get the game.
We
I know
had
we're
to.
talking NFL sides. We had to with that week. With that, it's terrible. But there are just times where, again, we've spoke about you're going to have the right handicap, but the coin that gets flipped in the air at the end of the game is going to land on the wrong side, or vice versa. You're going to have the wrong handicap, but the gambling gods are in your favor and push you across to the win. I feel like most of our losses, obviously, there are going to be times you're just wrong. You can't be right all the time. But I feel like there's a very large chunk of our losses that were right handicap, wrong variance, honestly. So very nice to kind of just see a pretty solid week where everything just went to perfection. And outside of Mr. Aaron Jones, but it's all right. We can never be too mad about that. We'll be back on Thursday, of course, talking our best bets. So make sure to come in on the Thursday show. But let's talk some topics around the National Football League. So
Mm-hmm.
11 weeks in, right? Like playoff pictures are here. Like we talked about this last show, like this time of year now is when it's like, okay, like this is a whole new season. Like if you can rattle off, 6 wins for most teams in a row to end the season or, play really good football, like you're going to see yourself in the playoffs. Like this is the season now. There are a couple of teams that are trending in the right direction right now. There's actually a team I didn't put on the notes, Newbie, but you mentioned them, so you reminded me. Talking about the Houston Texans, I want to talk about first before some other teams you had listed. So here's my quick stance on the Texans, and I would love to see the comments. Sorry, Robo, my producer, Robert, if this is going to piss you off. While I'm beyond impressed with Houston and what they've done, CJ Stroud, there's nothing to not be impressed about. All he's done is shine. But that's like, while that's what happened the last couple of weeks, it's not every single week. Like he had a couple of bad games. Okay, he's a rookie, not gonna, write him off or anything like that. But are we sure, Newey, that this Houston Texans team is like a good football team, or are they a average football team that just believes in themselves and is, exceeding expectations? Because this defense is still horrible, and Stroud literally 3 weeks ago put up a dud in Carolina. So while again, I hate to sound like a hater, but you got to take everything with a grain of salt in this league.
Yeah, you definitely have to. However, this is a Texans team that has gone on the road and beaten the Jaguars outright. They've gone on the road. Sure, I completely agree with you. We had that we had that stinker against the Panthers, but that was also a spot that we said was a horrible spot for the Cardinals and was the rah-rah spot for the Panthers. I also think the Panthers defense isn't quite as bad as they've really been billed, for what it's worth. But then this most recent win, man, going on the road and beating Joe Burrow, albeit without some major weapons, that's a pretty big feather in the cap of a young quarterback and a first-year head coach. So I definitely, I'm not going to be placing any Super Bowl tickets on the Texans. However, I think at this point in the season, if there's smoke, there's fire. And I think there's a fire underneath this Texans team. And if you just look at the rest of their schedule, there's a lot of winnable games on there. Am I going to be punching a Texans to, make the playoffs ticket? There'll probably be some nice plus money to do so. But I don't know. I think there's a lot to be excited about. I don't think that they're overhyped. I think they're justly hyped. I think they're fun. I think, obviously their defense leaves a lot to be desired. I'm very bullish on this Texans team, and you knew I was coming in. So definitely vindicated that at least one of the sites that I had my team, a team that I had ISO'd in on to be playing, especially when they were dogs getting a lot of points. You made a lot of money if you've been betting the Houston Texans and betting them smartly this year.
Yeah, and I just bring this up just because you got to play a little devil's advocate. Like the NFL, like you have to get away from your priors. You have to take everything in a vacuum. Like there were so many people going back to last night's game. Buffalo will finally get a right spot against this Broncos team only because they let up 70 points one time in the season. What happens? Yes, the Buffalo Bills should have won that game without that penalty at the end, but they never should have been in that football game in the first place. So just kind of playing a little devil's advocate. And speaking of the Texans, though, like they currently hold the last playoff spot in the AFC. Like they're plus 110 at best at MGM, I'm seeing, to make the playoffs. So I think that's actually a terrible price right now. I would kind of hope that they lose this week if you really like them to then buy back in later. I think you're now, like right now, if you're betting the Texans, like you said, Newbie, they've been a sharp team all season long. If you bet the Texans, you probably made some money. You see the board move every single week in the Texans' favor because there were some sharp guys out there that say we like the Texans. But now you're buying them at their absolute peak. And that brings me to the
and that's a great point too, because at plus 110, there's not enough value to add that to your portfolio. You know what I mean? Because the bottom could fall out. It's a fun story, but pick your spots with them week in week. Pick your money line spots. If you had a money line bet on them +7, that's a great ticket, and you're already getting better plus money than you can get them to make the playoffs at plus 110. So week in spots. That's why I'm not really a futures guy.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense because there are times where you just want to time the market. Like we were talking about that Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts when they play each other. We said maybe get a Dak MVP ticket if you think that the Cowboys are going to win. So they did pull off that victory. Then Dak has the 400-yard game against the hapless Giants. you're maybe seeing a little bit of support in the market where you're holding a decent
Mhm.
ticket. But digression aside, so the next team that we want to talk about happens to be playing the Texans this weekend, the Arizona Cardinals. I only want to bring this up now because we obviously track market movement throughout the week. We talk our best bets on Thursday when we get to see a little bit of a mature market with also some early, movement. We get to see enough of the picture where it's like, okay, now we have a pretty decently painted picture. The market's not too efficient, so this is a good time to be really making your bets. With that being said, though, the Cardinals, they are not going to be in contention to like win anything, but they went from +5.5 to minus to +4 within a couple hours of opening. Like this game like lit up across the board and moved. Kyler Murray looked great, but they played the Falcons. I think the Falcons are one of the worst teams of football. I couldn't believe there were people in the
Yep.
beginning of the season who thought they were like going to be relatively good. But dude, but you see like a glimmer of hope? Like, is Kyler Murray him? Because you asked me last year before the injuries, like he wasn't good enough. Like he was like that drama queen kind of quarterback who like didn't play hard, didn't go pick up Buda Baker when he got hurt, not that real true leader. Now all of a sudden the new regime is saying he is that guy because how could they not? But I don't know, newbie. Like, what are your thoughts on the Cardinals? I guess not even just the rest of this season, but just in general, because I'm still beyond out on them.
Yeah, I mean, for DFS players, having Kyler back is a great thing. But as far as for getting me excited about betting the Arizona Cardinals, I think I'm going to go the opposite way on that. Because let's be real, they end up winning the game in some drama fashion. They end up winning 2 points against the Falcons, who I share the same sentiments with you. I think Arthur Smith doesn't know how to utilize talent, doesn't know how to have a grip in game. Really just a very poor schematic head coach. So I'm right there with you on the Atlanta Falcons. I never had a buy sign on them. But let's look at the fact that the Cardinals won the game by 2 points in an NFL football game where the other team ended up with 70 passing yards. So you're telling me you
Yeah.
want me to get excited about a Cardinals team that had to scrape out a win against a team who couldn't get over 75 yards passing? Come on, folks. Like I can't do it. I get it. It's the sharp side. I don't think I'm going to be placing any Texans laying points after a big emotional win coming home after the game that they had last week. But no, there's no buy sign on me for the Arizona Cardinals. I think Jonathan Gannon is what he is. He's a decent guy who you can find your spots to bet on him. I don't think he's going to be a long-term head coach in this league. Kyler Murray, he's a fun player to watch. Don't get me wrong. But when push comes to shove, do I want that guy in the foxhole with me? I don't know. Maybe I want him on my team for Call of Duty. Now that's a different thing that we're talking about. If we're talking a little, e-gaming, sign me up for the Kyler Murray experience. But this team doesn't have a little bit of a buy sign. That being said, it's not that I'm completely selling them. I think when you have some opportunities to bet on them, you can make coin on them. But for me, man, not even a little bit bullish about the outlook moving forward here for the Cardinals.
Me neither. I feel like just the narrative again, like NFL, the media driven, it changes week to week. Kyler Murray was getting
Yep.
all this crap. Remember the workout clause in his contract? Like that is not just gone away. Like kudos to him for
No.
working back from the knee. Kudos to him for putting in a great first game, albeit against a very bad opponent. But I like you said, newbie. I don't want to get too much more into this game because we'll talk more if we mix the card on Thursday. But like, I get the whole emotional win aspect for the Texans. I think you could make the same case for the Cardinals. And do I think
Great
Houston is
point.
4 points better than Arizona on a neutral field? Like, probably. But moving on to another team that snuck out another W. This is a team that I was bullish as hell on coming into the season. And I guess so far justified, but that's the Cleveland Browns. We already knew like this defense to start off the season. Like a lot of good coordinators and teams in the NFL do is you can't fault them for it. Like they beat the crap out of bad teams, which check, you should do that. And then they struggle and look normal against good to great teams like they did on Sunday and they have in the past. They've gotten beaten by good offenses. What is your outlook on this team, Newey? Because my whole crux of this team getting back to it was I knew the defense was going to be a lot better with Jim Schwartz and the pieces they added, but also that maybe Deshaun Watson could be good. He started the game with one of the worst interceptions you could ask for and looked absolutely terrible. But then he ends up leading a game-winning drive. Like, are you like what's the jury on your jury in this? Are you completely out? Are you getting reeled back in? Is one game not enough? Because like this team is like overall talent-wise too good to ignore, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the thing for me is, and a lot of people don't like looking at games in a vacuum, and I like looking at the whole summation of the season as well. But the way that they got that win against the Ravens, dude, that was roll over and give up time. Everybody looking sideways at Deshaun Watson, who looked absolutely horrible and rusty to start that football game. It looked like it was another Ravens going away game. Everybody talking about the point differential, the defense, the this, the that. The Browns just didn't go away, even though they were down 17-3. Like, that was the chance, if it was going to be the same old Cleveland Browns team, to roll over and say, all right, well, at least we got Kenny Pickett and the Steelers coming to town. We owe them one from the last time. No, they kept playing. Jerome Ford ends up going over 100 yards on the ground. So finally, that rush game that really, since the injury to Chubb, hasn't had any consistency, started to come back. You have your franchise quarterback, whether you agree or disagree if he should be in that position. He is back. He gets a signature win on the road against the Baltimore Ravens team that it was flying insanely high. And I don't think you can say, oh, well, it was a letdown spot for the Ravens. You know, they were due for this. They were on their way to rolling, and the division foe came back and fought. So now the Browns, do they get to get payback against the Steelers? If they do, you take a look at that schedule. There could be a nice little run shaping up here for the Cleveland Browns. We're talking Broncos the following week, Rams, come home, play against the Jags. You then host the Bears. You then go on the road against the Texans. You get the Jets again, and then you wrap it up against the Bengals. Who knows what Bengals team you're going to get in that final game of the season? So I'm right here with you, man. If there is any buy sign for me, it's on this Cleveland Browns team, because I think the this gets overplayed a little bit, but the heart and grit of that win on the road against the division foe, man, I think that is a major rah rally the troops. Look, we can beat anybody kind of win that I saw last week. How did you look at it, or do you just think, oh, it's a divisional win, it's a nice win? Because I was very impressed with the Cleveland Browns comeback win.
Yeah, I had the Ravens -6 going 14 points into the fourth quarter. Thought it was going to be a good time, but I had the Browns plus 500 to win the AFC North before the season started. I am still holding that ticket. They are in a great position to hopefully get there now. They have to beat Pittsburgh this weekend, like must, because they can't be 0-2 to the Steelers team that we're not even talking about, because they're not in the situation. But yes, like I said, newbie, I've always coming into the season thought that this team, talent wise, roster wise, coaching wise, was one of the best teams in football. And so far, they did it. Some of the games they lost were with Dorian Thompson-Robinson and PJ Walker at the helm. So gotta give the Browns. I'm bullish on the Browns. I've been bullish on the Browns. So let's see if they can keep it up. But let's go on some teams that are just trending in the wrong direction. Some of these don't even need enough explanations for. But the New Orleans Saints, right? Like, I got burned by them again, probably the third time this season. Derek Carr to win a game and cover a spread on the road is not a thing. He just doesn't do it. He's like 5-18 doing that or something like that. Dennis Allen to win a game and cover as a favorite on the road doesn't do that in his coaching career either. Like, is there any reason to think that the Saints can actually do something? Or like, because you ask me, like, no, like they couldn't cover. They play their man defense. They don't like adjust for the any running quarterbacks. They don't have good pass rush. They don't throw the ball down the field, and Derek Carr just isn't that good at quarterback, and their coach sucks. So this team's done, right?
It's hard to disagree there. I think the only thing that maybe would give me pause on completely jumping out of the Saints camp is the back end of this schedule. I
Yeah.
think there are a lot of winnable games that they have the rest of the way here. You look at probably their toughest game being a home game against the Lions. That's something that, at least if you're looking for something to be positive about with this Saints team, because there aren't many things to look for, it's you look at that back end and say, probably they can get it done in the division, and then end up at least hosting a playoff game, which we've talked about. What a ridiculous
Yeah.
statement that is, that anyone in this division gets to host a game. But for me, man, like, I feel like I'm more optimistic if Jameis Winston is playing. And I know that that's like a tired, worn out narrative. I know he had the 2 interceptions. However, he was also coming in cold. He was coming in way behind. He really had to extend himself and had to try and make things happen. I know that they went out, they paid all the money for Derek Carr. He's going to be Dennis Allen's guy, but I never want to wish injury on anyone. Let me get that out of the way. But I don't think a Derek Carr injury is the worst thing for this football team, is I guess what I'll leave it at.
I don't even know who gives them a better chance of winning at this point. And quite frankly, it doesn't matter because if they do win the South, they're losing probably in the first game. And someone has to win the South, unfortunately. But no, they're just unserious. And you talked about the back half of their schedule. Well, the first half was easy as hell, also, and they didn't get anything
Good
going.
point.
So
Yeah, they had one of the easiest schedules top to bottom in the league, and that was one of the reasons to be bullish on them heading into the season. And even so, they've lost some games that they should win. I mean, that game against the Vikings, I think, sure, it had something to do with just this surging Vikings team and the belief in Dobbs, but the effort while Derek Carr was in there was just bad, man.
yeah, it's like, could you imagine if the Saints had like Sean Payton as their coach, or maybe Russell Wilson as their quarterback? Then maybe we'd be talking about a 6 or 7 win team at this point. But
Yeah.
moving on, because not to harp on them, and not to harp on this next team either, because you and I, newbie, like pat on the back, we've been down on them all season long. Even in the off-season preview, we were down on the Buffalo Bills, and to like their credit, like the injuries are what really destroyed them and what brought them out and to make them this bad team. So like while like I guess you could say we were right, it did take a lot of injuries for us to be right here. But newbie, the Bills are dead if you ask me. Do you agree or what?
I don't know if they're dead quite yet, but doesn't it feel like a sinking ship that has a hole in it that they're just trying to bail water out of? You know what I mean? You see the change in the coordinator today. Is the coordinator out there throwing horrible lollipops up? No, Josh Allen is out there. Or is the coordinator out there putting the ball on the turf time after time? No, that's the running backs who are doing that. This is a team who elected to take the ball last night and then they fumble it on basically the first play of the game. And that set
Yep.
in motion what you were going to see the rest of the evening. Now, hand up, man, I wanted to bet the Broncos. I was going to give that out as one of my picks here. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. I just didn't want the ire of the chat to be like, what are you talking about, Broncos? But a ticket I held myself was a Broncos money line ticket last night because this Bills team, I feel like, yes, the injuries are concerning, and that's a part of why they're struggling. But this just feels like, and it was something that I said heading into the year, this is a team where the message from McDermott has gone stale. He was a great head coach. He still is a solid head coach. I would put him in the upper echelon of the NFL, but the proof is in the pudding, and you can't constantly lose. You can't constantly underperform and expect a locker room of grown men and athletes to continue to buy in. It just isn't the reality. I saw it play itself out in a Hall of Fame coach in Andy Reid getting ousted from the Philadelphia Eagles. At a certain point, the proof has to be in the pudding, and this team constantly underachieves, and not more so notably than what they're doing in this regular season. Like, yes, okay, I sprinkled a little bit on Broncos money line. I thought it was a fun little ha-ha ticket. I'm shocked that Josh Allen continues to look like the player that I kind of worried that he was. I'll come out here and say the hot take that I put on Twitter all the time at Newbie Talks. You can drag me on Twitter. Like, Josh Allen is just Brett Favre, who's riskier and can run the ball a little bit better. And people think when you hear Brett Favre, that's a great name. Go and look back to his turnover ratio. The guy was a gunslinger. We say the word gunslinger like it's a good thing. I hear gunslinger and I hear reckless quarterback who, is prone to turning the ball over. And that's what Josh Allen is right now. That's what I worried it was coming into the year. Can the Buffalo Bills still circle the wagon and get things right? Sure, maybe, but even if they do, come playoffs, I'm not taking this team straight up against any of the top foes in the AFC. I don't know what you think about that.
I just think they're seriously not even going to make it, right? Like last night too, like outside of obviously Daquan Jones, who was on the IR, Trey White, and Matt Milano, they're missing Micah Hyde and Christian Benford, two of their best defensive players in the secondary. Like any team, don't get me wrong, is going to struggle when you are down to when DeMar Hamlin played last night for the first time all season because it was out of necessity because he's the fifth string defensive back and he had to
Yeah.
play. Like it was
And
end
comes
of the
on the
game,
field
but
at the worst time. That 12th
yeah.
man penalty, that's horrible, man. Like that's the Buffalo Bills season in a microcosm. Unprepared in the most important moments of the season. How do you let that happen, man?
And then they fired Ken Dorsey, who led this team to first in success rate, third in EPA per
Yeah.
play, third in early down EPA, second and third down over expected.
I don't get it.
Like, this offense was humming. He had nothing to do with it, but like you said with Josh Allen, like, the most like, you saw, like, Russell Wilson, for example, last night, threw the ball deep literally a singular time last night, and that was to draw that pass interference penalty. I'm sitting there because I had a little bit of a ticket on Marvin Mims because I was thinking that, Benford's out, Hyde's out, maybe he can push one, explosive pass down the field. And he didn't throw a single one. And like, I'm sitting there frustrated, like, damn, like, come on, throw the football. Like, what are you waiting for? Like, try to get a big play. But like, the reality is, turnovers kill your team. Like, losing possessions is the quickest way to lose a football game. So being risk averse, like a Derek Carr sometimes, like a Russell Wilson there too. Don't get me wrong, there are certainly times where you have to push the football, and you should for multiple reasons, get the defense off balance, get a big play, get a PI, etc. But like, some of the throws he makes, like, yes, he can make and the excuse is he can make every throw, so he makes these bad throws because he thinks he could do everything. It's like, sometimes you just gotta, like, be smart. Like,
Yep.
straight up. Like, sometimes you have to make the better play, which is not taking a big hit, which is throwing the football out of bounds. It is what it is. But I'm out. I really would not be shocked if they don't make the playoffs. If they do, no, they're just not making it. Honestly, we can get to that on Thursday in more detail because maybe we'll talk about the Jets game there. A team that always plays them close and it's fighting for a spot themselves. But there's nothing to get excited about for them at all, as we saw with our own two eyes last night. I don't think this is an overreaction. We talk about not overreacting too much because anything happens. We've been talking about this all season long. So
Yeah.
just a
No.
little more evidence there. But another team, Newbie, the Jets. Again, I didn't mean to be talking about two teams that are playing each other, but again, a team that I hated all year long. I live in New York. I have a ton of Jets fans. They still think Zach Wilson is good at football. I laugh. Like, I can't even have those conversations anymore. What are your thoughts on this team's outlook? Because the defense, yes, has great players and they do play well. Zach Wilson is horrible. Aaron Rodgers is coming back, but like, there's no way Aaron Rodgers off an Achilles tear in record timing in the history of Achilles tears is that good in a couple months. And like, I'm no doctor. I guess I'll believe it when I see it. But like, is this team like going to sneak in, or like it's just the same old news? You have a bad coach, a terrible quarterback, a terrible offense. Like, what do you want from this team? Like, how do you expect it to be good?
Yeah, I mean, we're recording here on a Tuesday morning, and I think the Jets just failed to have another drive that ends in a touchdown. I mean,
Yeah,
if I'm a Jets fan, man, I'm pulling my hair out. Like think about. I mean, you're a Washington Commanders fan, and obviously, when we're handicapped, we take our fans' hats off. But like, even in the stretches that we've seen our teams be bad, I don't know if I've ever endured what is it like 45 straight drives with no six. Like, not
it's
getting in the
ridiculous.
end zone once. Like, you cannot win in the NFL if you're not scoring touchdowns. You might be able to pull out some games. Don't get me wrong. You get three, you get three, you get three, you end up with 12. Okay, you're in a game. But to lose the game the way that they did against the Raiders, and let's be real, the Raiders were a wrong side winner. Like, the Jets should have covered that game. The Jets should have won that game, but they didn't. And that's what it comes down to. And this whole Aaron Rodgers coming back thing will just have to stay afloat until he comes back in December, blah, blah, blah. Behind this offensive line, a guy coming off an Achilles tear. Let's be real here, folks. There is no quarterback cure-all. It all starts in the trenches. If you watched the Hard Knocks this year, Robert Saleh even came out. He was like, the culture isn't going to change here until the big guys up front make it change. And guess what? They ain't making anything change. They can't even move the chains to make the down and distance change to get into the end zone. So be my guest. Do the whole Aaron Rodgers dance and bring him back way too early. Watch what happens behind this offensive line. Quarterback is not a cure-all in the NFL. It's just not the reality of it. You don't have big boys up front. You don't have skill players around the offense. Every quarterback's going to struggle. And let's be real, the reason why Aaron Rodgers is missing time is because of the offensive line they started with the season. And now they have all kinds of injuries to the best players who were on that O-line, who let the pass rush get to Aaron Rodgers on his second snap as a Jet. Nothing is going to change. They can't go out. They can't trade for a new offensive lineman until they have a good offensive line. I would leave Aaron Rodgers on ice because you want to rush him back. Be my guest, Jets fans. It's not going to turn out well for you.
Like, this isn't the season. Like, why? Like, I know that their defense is like really good. I know, like, but like, Garrett's not going anywhere. Garrett Wilson, Brees Hall's not going anywhere. Like, Aaron, like take the time for yourself, like relax, and then like that
Agreed.
Joe Douglas actually get AVT back, some other offensive lineman back, like go make a trade for some linemen this offseason. Like there's
Yeah.
no reason
No,
this team.
so what you do is you attack the draft, you leave Aaron Rodgers on ice, you do everything you can to get Devontae Smith or to get Adams off of the Raiders and get him to the Jets. I know at the trade deadline you weren't able to make a good enough offer. You do what you can to get some more skill players on here. You attack the draft, get offensive linemen, trade up for offensive linemen if you need them. You need to shore up the offensive line. You need one more playmaker. And then this Jets team could run this division moving forward. But this ain't the year to do it. I'm completely with you.
Yeah, so Newbie and I wanted to focus in on these teams specifically because we're going to talk, whether we should be out on the Ravens or Jaguars. Like after one loss, like you should not be on them. Whether we should be buying so much so the Miami Dolphins or buying in the NFC the Vikings. Like those are conversations that are worth having. But just want to stick on these teams because these are teams we feel like adamantly like no, like these are guys that they're not their outlook for the rest of the season just really is not worth like mentioning. The other teams are in the playoff races. We anticipate them continuing to play well, but like a couple of teams we mentioned, especially the Saints, the Bills, and the Jets. While the Saints might make the playoffs, still like these are teams that yeah, you can make the playoffs cool, but the goal should be to win a Super Bowl. So,
Yep.
Newbie, let's go talk some Thursday night football. Real quick, we have the Ravens hosting the Bengals. Finally, a great Thursday night game. The Ravens laying 3.5 at home at the bank. Total open at 43 and steamed all the way up to 46 already. Of course, a lot of time for buyback in both of those markets. Anything could happen really there. I got in on the total. I was writing the GoldSheet newsletter Monday morning, as always. Saw 44.5. Like it's the first game because it's Thursday. The first game I write, and I'm like, this seems low. And then, literally within 3 minutes of that, I see the WagerTalk Live odds screen light up everywhere. Sharp shops, offshore, onshore, going up. 46, 45.5, 46, 46.5, sitting there. I saw some recreational books that are local, not moved yet. So I got in because I was like, I already thought this perfectly, timed the market hopefully well. But my initial thought, obviously, Newbie, is the over. The Bengals, we saw, like, guest CJ Stroud did amazing, but this Bengals defense is terrible. What's kept them in games this season is that they're second in the NFL in turnover EPA. And we saw what happened on Sunday when they don't force turnovers. This team cannot get off the field. They're 29th in defensive success rate. They're 28th in third down over expected. And they're 24th in drive success, excluding turnovers, meaning that teams can get whatever they want successfully on offense. Teams can get whatever they want on third down. And then again, if the Bengals are not forcing those fluky turnovers, their defense is letting up points, and more points. So that led me to the over there, Newbie. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, I really like that look towards the over as well. And especially because, as you mentioned, you get the value in the marketplace just because the public bet has now become unders in the primetime games and it's been cashing like crazy. I mean, it used to be, all we wanted to see is points. So I think the opener already opened with that kind of in mind and you've already seen it tick up, but I still think there's value on that number. I think as far as the side, what makes this game really tough to handicap is both of these teams coming off of losses. Like, I think, there was a little bit of looking ahead for both of these football teams, looking forward to this Thursday night football game. And that's why you end up with a losing game for both of them. Maybe the Ravens, feel like, hey, we got this in the bag. Let's start getting ready. And then, obviously the Browns come from behind and get the job done. In the other case, it was the Bengals having to fight through, having to try and chip away at a lead that was built by the Texans and CJ Stroud. So I just think, maybe a little bit of last weekend, what we saw had to do with the fact that this game was circled on the calendar for both of these teams. So I just think it's a really tough game to handicap. I think the Ravens are primed to be in a bounce back spot. The fact that they're the home team on Thursday night football, that always makes me look towards them. But as long as it's over that hook, like I'm not laying 3.5 with the Ravens. I don't know if it's enough to get me on the Bengals. So I hate to, be, like Switzerland being completely neutral on this, but a case can be made for both sides on this, man. And I'm just not interested in placing a bet here on a Tuesday when I don't know the health of this Bengals side. I don't know how the Ravens are going to look bouncing back. What kind of Lamar Jackson are we going to get whenever he's playing in division? I always have my concerns about how he's going to play. So 3.5 is the perfect line to me to keep me off both sides of this game. If there was a bet to be made, even with the CLV that we lost on it, I'm with you. I think we finally see a primetime over coming on Thursday night.
I certainly believe that there will be a primetime over. Obviously, when it comes to over unders, like you have to obviously, of course, consider like the market as well, right? So, like, yeah, you can get a prime and a half. Like, yes, the game went under, but if you were able to get in early, as you should try to do to beat NFL sides, you technically would hit a primetime over if it say landed 46. But I agree with you. Like, no, by Baltimore is the better football team. Like Baltimore, I did not downgrade really much at all. Like there's fluky turnover. They can run the ball, and the Bengals defense, 27th in rush EPA, 32nd in explosive rush percentage allowed. Like Devin all year long made running on the Bengals look like an absolute joke. But with that being said, Joe Burrow at home, not at home, in all games, but excluding his rookie season as an underdog, 12-4 against the spread. Obviously, not a huge sample size, just an
Yep.
encapsulation how, we know that it's Joe Burrow, Joe Shiesty, all the nicknames from under the sun. Why do you get those warranted nicknames? Because when his back's against the wall, when this team needs to win, when this team is being counted out and viewed as underdogs, he comes up and at least covers the spread at 12-4. So tough for me, newbie too. I hate how again, like I love giving some actionable. The over at 46, I would say maybe like hopefully it comes down because I still would like this with anything in this area if it goes up anymore. Definitely not because 47 is a key number, but that's the best thing that I could put out there is I love the over. And two, just don't count out Joe Burrow as a dog. You could even be a week to do maybe even a square teaser where you're teasing up the Bengals to 9.5 and also, doing an alt line total with maybe, a Jamar Chase or something. I'm just saying, like, if you want to, have some fun with it and have some sweat going, that would be my way of going about it is adding points to the Bengals, getting this total a little bit lower, and then targeting either a Ravens back or a top wide receiver for Cincinnati.
Yeah, so there are some books out there that if you don't do advantage teasers, they'll trade them at -110. And I have one of
Yeah.
those. It's a decent notable offshore. So I'm kind of with you, just to like have a little bit of fun on this game because I wanted to make a case here for a player prop. I wanted to ISO in on some tight ends for the Bengals, but until we get health on what wide receivers are going to be in, what are going to be out, finding Bengals props are going to be few and far in between. Just blindly betting Mark Andrews over yardage, over receptions, always a fine enough bet if you want to get down on that. But honestly, if you're able to find -110, sure, it's a negative EV play, but why not tease up the Bengals, take them to 9.5, and then tease down the total, take it over 40 if you have a 46 sitting there, even 40.5. I think that's a fine enough bet if you just want a little pizza money, something fun here that we can give you some actionable info. And I'll even share out my ticket that I'll place that alone. So yes, it's negative EV. Yes, the sharps are going to tell you you're an idiot. And the Wong betting community is going to say, what are you doing? But I've cashed on some of these every now and then. So I'm going to go over the 40.5, take the Bengals up to the 9.5, hope for a close game with some scoring. I'll do a little same game -110 teaser.
Yeah, -110. That actually sounds great. But like you mentioned, not the most, definitely not a profitable strategy to do over the course of the season. But
Yeah.
you got to do what you got to do here and there if you want to get down in football. We're talking
Gotta
about
have a
the
little
NFL.
fun, man. The people want the picks. We can't come on here and just wave the Switzerland flag and have nothing for them. So stay tuned to our Twitters as well. EP's always dropping out his player prop parlays. Check him out at Slime Action. Check me out at Newbie Talks. And always, as always, hop below in the comments. Any questions that you have, reach out to us on Twitter. We love interacting with the GoldSheet TV community that we've started to build.
Yep. Comments, please. Questions, thoughts, comments, concerns are greatly appreciated. Liking the video and subscribing are as well. And Newbie and I will be back on Thursday with another batch of best bets. Looking for the complete sweep this week. We've been close. Last week was the closest, but we're always right on the ball. And if we're losing, it's because of nonsense. So let's get right to it. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.